Hi and welcome back. I'm Carly from Soundside Studios, and today we are talking about clarifying cards, what they are, why some readers use them, and why I don't. We'll explain it all, so let's dive in. If you've never heard the term before, let's talk about what is a clarifying card. Clarifying cards are used by readers when they want more information about the messages they've already received from an initial reading or spread. So for instance, imagine Susie Q comes to me as a client and wants to do a reading on her relationship. We'll say this is her relationship partner, this is her, and this middle card is advice for what to do in the relationship moving forward. As I, the reader, turn over these cards, I'll start sharing information that I'm seeing from them and sparking new ideas in her head. And then maybe as the reader, I get up to this last one and I'm surprised by it. Oh, you got the star. And maybe I'm not sure what to suggest to her because either I don't know very much about the star card or I don't know how it applies to her, or she's surprised to see the card. So my temptation as a reader might be to get more information about that card. So I'll go to the tarot deck and say, give me more information about how to use that star card. And if the next card isn't enough, maybe I do another one, maybe I do another one. It's up to the discretion of the reader how many cards they draw. They can either draw more than one, and they can also put it on any one of these cards. They could say, oh, I don't understand Susie Q's role. And so maybe they draw a card to learn more about her and her situation, or the partner. So there really aren't rules around clarifying cards, but that gives you a sense of how they get used and why some people think they're beneficial. I've been reading tarot for 10 years, and I don't use clarifying cards ever. This might feel a little controversial to people, but I actually don't find them helpful. What I've noticed is that when people open the door to drawing more cards, they start this waterfall effect, where each card is looked at a little more superficially. And the result is that messages aren't really coming up in a helpful way from any of those cards until the individual puts down a card that they've been looking for, or maybe a card that has always been really easy to them or really clear to them. It almost causes a reader to skip over the work of true interpretation and simply get the message that they wanted, that they think they can deliver with confidence, but that may not actually be accurate or helpful to themselves or whoever they're reading for. Let's say you don't want to do clarifying cards either. You're in the right place because I have some tips for you. This is what I do to avoid needing to use clarifying cards. First and foremost, this one is going to require the most amount of work. When a card comes up and you don't fully connect to it, pause. Don't react by grabbing that deck. Don't react by just going straight to a book. Take a second and ask, what is it about this card that I'm not connecting to? Is it the imagery in the card? Is it this deck? Is it the position? Check in first on, did I have a clear understanding of the context where I put the card, or am I confused on that? Do I have a clear understanding of the card with what it's meant to me traditionally? If it's a whole new card, is it symbolism that doesn't resonate with me? Or is it just confusing because I haven't seen it before? You may also want to ask, am I repelled by the meaning of the card that I don't think aligns with what I think is true in the situation? Maybe this is just two opposites that you're trying to push together, and your conscious mind automatically shut out the meaning of that card because it doesn't want to consider it. So once you've done that first check-in, that gives you a chance to then consciously identify where did that block occur. And if it's just in the symbolism, you could slowly look at the card, take a breath, and consider, how do you connect to it? What could it mean? And that might take a little more time for your brain to get to work, but it can find something eventually. So those could be interpretation blockages. The next thing I recommend is, how are you using the card? So let's say that we have the star card, which comes up, and you don't know how to interpret it in the context of a relationship that today isn't doing well. You would expect it to crumble in the future, right? Instead of interpreting this as a card that's predictive or a card that's just confusing, I'd recommend let it inspire some new questions. Let it open up new ways of thinking. For instance, this card could inspire me to ask Susie Q, can you be your authentic self in the relationship? Can your partner be their authentic self? How is the transparency? Are you honest with each other? Do you feel like you need to hide things? Do you have your own space to express individuality and shine your own light? Are you able to refresh your energy when you've been depleted from work or a fight? Are you able to repair your relationship after you've gone through a challenge? These are all questions that are relevant to the core meaning of that card. And they're ways for me as a reader to investigate what's really happening in that relationship. And then we can diagnose what are some of the challenges they've been facing, and could a behavioral shift allow for growth in that space. Now, that's going to be a way you can work with that card. Another option for you here is to make sure you have the right type of a setup. So let me walk you through this process. I'm going to pick these up, and this is what I always teach my students. So when you do your reading, you want to make sure your deck is shuffled, cut, and prepared. And then in your mind, you want to know exactly what your positions are. So I know I'm going to draw a card for her partner, herself, and the relationship longer term. Let's say the relationship longer term. Then set your deck to the side. Get it out of your hands. This is so important. Drop the deck. Then you come back to your reading space and yourself. Take a deep breath to center, because that can help engage the parasympathetic nervous system, take nerves away, and allow your subconscious mind to be more present in your reading. Set your mental intention, remind yourself what the positions are, and make sure you are ready to do your reading. Don't do your reading out of a place of panic, rush, or hurry. As you turn over each card, well, I put these down in the wrong spot, forgive me, but you'll register your first reaction, identify the keywords that come up for you, and then you'll move on to the next card and the next card. For the sake of continuity, I'm just going to switch these so that it looks like it originally did. And once you have all your cards down, take a bigger perspective of what their relationships could be, and then zoom back in. If you still have done this and you're not sure what this confusing card meant or this confusing card meant, if you've sat with it and understood why you're not connecting to it, if you've tried asking different questions and they haven't led you to beneficial answers that have gotten you forward, help move you forward, then go do some research. Look up some other meanings to the card. Maybe there's a nuance that you're not familiar with that has been around for years but you just never thought of. Maybe that could round out your understanding of the card and open up a new world to explore, a new nuance within that interpretation. Another thing is maybe you could ask a friend. I wouldn't do this if I was with a client, but if I was reading for myself on a situation that was important to me, then I might call a friend and say, hey, I got a card that represents these themes, and I'm trying to understand how it could relate to my relationship. Phoning a friend can bring you some valuable feedback and guidance that your brain wasn't able to see because it was in its own patterns and it was really stuck with its own vision. And then the last thing is sometimes you just need to journal down and take a picture of the cards you have and then walk away. Maybe after you sleep, your subconscious mind will pop up some new understandings. Maybe the next day you'll hear a song and there'll be a song lyric that talks about stars and it connects a meaning or a philosophy to that card. So don't be afraid to give things time. When you force an answer, you might be prematurely forcing your brain to go through a pattern that it's not ready to move through yet. Don't be afraid of giving things time. And a lot of that encouragement, it goes back to why we engage the parasympathetic nervous system. We want to be calm when we do our reading. We don't want to read out of panic, rush, or crisis. So if there's a time constraint on your reading, you may want to look at other options for handling those emotions before you even come down to your cards in the first place. There's one last thing I want to add as your tarot teacher and friend. And it's that if you don't understand the message from the cards or it didn't fulfill you or satisfy you, you can absolutely scoop up all the cards and simply start again. Maybe you need to look at this relationship from a different perspective and do a different type of a reading. Or maybe you want to say, I don't understand that star card. And you might say, how could I be more transparent with my partner? What's holding me back from talking about things? You could address the specific qualities of that relationship, of the card that came up in the context of the relationship, to get more understandings of how to use that guidance. And then as you turn over those cards, you get some new ideas about how to put those ideas into action. So I hope that's helpful. So there you have it, a little more information about clarifying cards. I hope now you can decide if you want to integrate this idea into your practice or if you would rather not use clarifying cards. It's always about what works best for you and your intentions. Please leave a comment below and let me know if you use clarifying cards or if you choose not to. Remember to like and subscribe and make sure to follow me on socials to stay in touch. I'll see you next time. Happy reading!